Techno Wizard, and today I'm going to continue my newsletter, reading through my newsletter. Last time we just went over the introduction and why I'm doing this, and today we're going to get into my a little bit about my story and why I think I can help change the world for the better. So, uh, let's get into it. For as long as I can remember, I've been dreaming about massively changing the world for the better. Here is another article I wrote a few years ago specifically about my ambition, and here's an autobiography about my early life. So yeah, just to show y'all real quick. Oh, I didn't share those. I probably should have done that. Let me see if I can share my screen. So you're gonna see all my tabs. So this, I haven't been on Medium in a minute, but yeah, I wrote this about my ambitions to change the world, dream big, and everything like that. My kind of story around hover cars and flying vehicles and super cities and things like that. And this was years ago, like was it 2015 maybe? That's another article, but yeah, I think this one was 2015 that I wrote this. Yeah, 2015. So I've been thinking about this stuff for a very, very long time. And this is just like, that's not even the oldest one. It's not even the deepest cut. This book about my autobiography. So I wrote a whole book, 120 pages about my life. Uh, Not because I think I'm like interesting, but as I poke out here, well, I think everybody's interesting, but the reason why I wrote this is because I was at a really tough time in my life, and I know I'm gonna go into a little bit of a director's cut, so sorry. I think it's good to get into this background, but I was at a really tough time. I think during this time, my entire family was living in like one room in my cousin's house. Like we got evicted from our last house due to it wasn't even our fault. I mean, technically it was our fault, but it was like the landlord didn't want to do any repairs to like and stuff like that. There was cracks in foundation and water going into the basement, and it created black mold and everything like that. And because of that, we had some medical issues, and we had to take people to the hospital. We couldn't pay the hospital bills and the rent at the same time. It was just a lot, man. It was really stressful. And we got evicted from that house because Georgia is a landlord state. So it doesn't matter if the landlord was technically in the wrong. Since we didn't pay the rent, that means we were legally in the wrong. Um, so yeah, that was a really tough time. We were technically homeless. And I think this was right before, yeah, this was right before I got my job at the virtual reality arcade. Um, yeah, and I wrote this book about my life. It kind of helped me get through that time. And I shared a lot of my kind of anxieties and thoughts and dreams and stuff like that. It was just kind of a therapeutic thing. But yeah, that was kind of a deep cut there. But anyways, one of my biggest problems when I was younger seemed to be lack of reliable transportation and being stuck in traffic. We often lived across town from school, so I always experienced loss of traffic. And so flying cars was one of my first ideas on how to solve that, right? And this goes back to third grade, second or third grade, right? Because I used to take again, my entire life, my family kind of struggled with poverty, and um, from well, most of my grade school life, right? We lived far away from the school because we had to move around a lot and stuff like that. Um, and in third grade, I used to dream. Actually, third it's interesting because in third grade, I used to live close. That was the closest I've ever lived to my school. It was like 5 minute drive, but there was a lot of traffic on that road. But the before and after that, lived very far away. But anyways, yeah, it was a very interesting time. I came up with this idea of hover cars and got really obsessed with it. Let's continue. As I began trying to invent the future, I began discovering all the other problems associated with vehicles, such as pollution, fuel, expense, repairability, traffic, jobs, and so on. Subsequently, I began trying to solve those problems too, by not just trying to invent hover cars, but ones that ran on renewable energy, was affordable, was versatile as a space for creative expression, and created more opportunities than it destroyed through tech and exploration. Then I realized that things like poverty and hunger were bigger problems. So I began to trying to tackle that through ideating super cities that could grow anything from food to devices to entire housing, coupled with incredibly creative bioengineering and biomimicry. Bean trees. It would also reverse climate change and save extinct and endangered species. I was on a roll, and yes, that was another deep cut. I'm surprised I didn't put the link for that one. So bean trees was another. It was a short article, but it was another idea that I thought about for a long time. And I shared it in one of these. I'm not sure if it's no. So I used to write like daily on Medium for like a year or 2 years or something like that, or tried to write daily. So that's why I have a lot of articles on there. It might be hard to find, but yeah, that was a fun idea right there. But then I realized that there was an even deeper problem: inequality, namely inequality of opportunity. I saw that even if people had virtual access to wealth by being in an even by being in even the wealthiest nations of the world, they still, for some reason, were not able to take advantage of that wealth. They did not seem to have real access. In addition, I noticed that there was a significant problem of mental health issues: loneliness, depression, anxiety, and so on. Even among people who had wealth, many were miserable. I was confused. I thought technology and progress and wealth would solve everything. Why then did people have who have so many resources still suffer so much? And this is going into like the higher amounts of depression among wealthy people and affluenza and all this other stuff. It's pretty terrible. But anyways, perhaps I was just naive. Perhaps that's just how the world works. Life isn't fair. That's just human nature. Humans never change. So they claim. But why? Why is it that so many people in the richest countries are so miserable? Are they really all just a bunch of entitled, whiny babies? But what about the very real things we still dealt with in places like the US? People getting murdered by cops, high rates of homelessness, not just with adults, but with kids who didn't even have the chance to mess up their life. Or how about the rising suicide rates, lack of healthcare, prison industrial complex, loneliness, depression, right? And I have stats for all these. I probably could have, should have put it in there. I was thinking about doing it. In my drafts, I put those stats in there. But as I started writing more and more, I was just like, it's going to be a lot. So I didn't want it to become an actual research paper because then now I have to backtrack with all those sources and recite them and check them and all that stuff. And this is meant to just be like sharing what I've learned and what I've been thinking so far. So that's why I didn't put that in there. But I do have citations for all this in the resources all there at the bottom of this. So if you're interested, you can look it up. Anyways, I've thought about committing suicide before many times. It takes a lot to actually go through with that. How much pain are these people suffering to actually go through with it? How miserable must they feel? Would someone who is just entitled really go through with something as final, as painful as suicide? It's these types of questions that led me down the rabbit hole to figure out why and how we created a society in which, even amidst so much progress, people felt so miserable. And yes, I use a lot of air quotes because a lot of this in these these air quotes. I started to look deeper. Were people just always like this? Is depression and loneliness really an inevitable result of higher intelligence? Is human anguish the cost for prosperity? Is the reality is or really is this really prosperity at all? How come you have to pay property taxes even after completely buying your own home? Why are so many black people poor? Are we really just inferior? Are we truly more violent and deserving of this pervasive third-rate citizen treatment? Are white people really all racist? Are men just smarter and more logical than their female counterparts? Are wealthy people just better people? Are they smarter and truly provide more value? Why is Africa so poor? Why is America the protector of the world? Do we really need to be spending such a ridiculous amount of money on the military when we still have so many people suffering and going without basic necessities? Is overwhelming force and threat of nuclear winter really what world peace looks like? Is this justice? Is this freedom? For years, I've been asking these sorts of questions, diving into all sorts of rabbit holes across the internet and with other people. Perhaps I was just naive. Perhaps I should just get with the program. What's the point of asking all these questions? I need to just focus on getting into school, getting a job, moving out of my parents' house. This is a waste of time. This is just how the world is. Capitalism is the best thing we can do. Vote for the politician that's the lesser of two evils and be grateful for this great country. Enjoy the small things in life. Look at all this amazing technology. Become rich. If I really want to solve anything, become the richest person in the world, then you can talk. Then people will listen. Play the game. However, slowly but surely, I began answering those questions and so much more. I began to see the patterns and the narratives, the ideas and the reasonings. I was wrong many times, but then I realized why I was wrong and what a more correct answer looked like and why it was more correct. I began piecing together stories in my mind. I began sharing them and going through the process of grappling with these ideas in the public space of my private mind. That's a little fun thing there because in my mind I have like I'm constantly on like a debate with other parts of my mind, and I'm just like going through these different scenarios. So it feels like it's public space, even though it's just my mind. So it's a little fun thing here. I still don't know everything. I likely never will. I still may be wrong, but I will be less wrong than ever before and be open to useful counterparts explaining how and why I am wrong so that I can self correct. I still don't even know how to adequately frame or explain the full scope of the problems we are facing. How do I present these ideas in such a way that people understand how I got here and why I think these are correct? At the same time, how do I encourage discourse to catch the inevitable mistakes? How do I do so in a way that encourages real, meaningful discourse and not just a bunch of people who want to bash me for questioning their perception of the world or folks who think they have answers but aren't self aware or humble enough to admit when they are wrong? How do I portray my confidence and show that it does not come from some superiority complex and thinking that I am just so much more smarter? I'm not. But instead comes from just years and years of self assessment alongside research and thinking and assessments of the world. Why should I even bother? I don't have much of a voice. Even if I'm right, who will see this? Who will care? What's the point? And what if I'm wrong? What if I just deluded myself into thinking that I could even deign to understand the bigger picture? I don't know, but I guess I have to try. I want to try. I just can't imagine myself being okay with living in a world in which I don't do everything in my power to help change it for the better, to help solve the problems I see and experience. So let me try. So yeah, I guess I'll end it there. We'll talk about the disclaimer next time. It's at 13 minutes now since I did a little director's cut. We'll continue with that from there. So yeah, let me know as always what you think, what you've learned, what you agree with, disagree with. Really, this is just me, just sharing, my journey so far. So I don't know what you got to disagree with. It's my story, bro. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Trying to keep it short. So yeah, have a great day. See ya. Bye bye.